Hello, this is Coding Gicha for full-stack developers. In the previous video, I set up the environment for developing a Deno project in Visual Studio Code, but the implementation source and test source files are mixed together. In this session, I will refine the directory structure to separate the implementation and test source files and manage project documentation alongside them. Deno provides a feature to run tests on JavaScript and TypeScript files that end with _test. However, since these files are mixed with the implementation source files, separating them during deployment is somewhat cumbersome. Fortunately, deno.test runs tests not only on files ending with _test but also on files under directories with 2 underscores before and after tests. I will move the test files to the directory with 2 underscores before and after tests. Files moved under the test directory do not need to have file names ending with _test. An error is displayed because the path to the imported file has changed. I will adjust the path. I will launch the integrated terminal. I will run deno.test. The test results were printed successfully. Although the test files have been separated from the implementation sources, the test directory exists at the same depth as the implementation sources. I will move the test directory outside of the implementation sources. I will create a main directory under the src directory. I will separate the implementation sources and test sources into a main directory and a test directory under the src directory. Personally, I prefer to manage project-related documents, such as design documents and meeting minutes, together in the project directory. To separate project-related documents into a docs directory, I have placed the main directory and the test directory under the src directory. I will open the main.ts file under the test directory. An error is displayed because the path to the imported file has changed. Also, the packages to be imported are configured in the deno.json file, but Visual Studio Code does not recognize these packages unless they are in the project root path. I will start by adjusting the path to the imported file. I will accurately set the path to the Deno configuration file in the Visual Studio Code project folder settings file. When you create a project with Deno in it, a Deno configuration file is created as a JSON file. I will convert it into a JSONc file that allows for comments. I will rename the deno.json file to deno.jsonc. Personally, I prefer using tabs over spaces for indentation. This is because spaces have a fixed indentation size that cannot be flexibly changed, and they also use more characters. I will change two spaces to tabs. I will change the indentation character from space to tab. The current tab size is 2 spaces, but I will change it to 4 spaces. If the indentation is set to tab, it has the advantage of allowing you to change the size immediately without affecting the source code. While it is better for security to set flags only for the permissions to be allowed in development environments, they are sometimes set to allow all permissions for development convenience. The packages to be imported are configured in the deno.jsonc file. However, since the test sources have been separated from the deno.jsonc file, the packages cannot be imported when running deno.test. I will move the packages to be imported into a separate file. You can configure the file to manage packages using the import map key. I will manage the packages in the import map.json file. I will launch the integrated terminal. I will navigate to the src directory. If I run deno.test alone, the import map information is not passed. I can pass package information through the import map option. Since the import map is moved to a separate file, there are no longer any restrictions on the test directory path. Because the deno test command is somewhat long, I will register it as a Visual Studio Code task. The label for the command running the deno server was somewhat dependent on the deno task name, so I will change it to a generic name. Since the location of the deno.jsonc file is not the root, I need to set the location where the deno task will be executed. I will also add a Visual Studio Code task to run deno test. I will name the label test deno server. I will set the location to run deno test to the project folder /src. I will add the import map option to the command that runs deno test. I will remove the presentation reveal settings so that test results can be checked immediately. I will run deno test as a Visual Studio Code task. Since deno.jsonc is primarily configured for development environments, it may be better not to deploy deno.jsonc when running deno server on a production server. Because the import map has been separated into a separate JSON file, it is now possible to import the packages via the import map option without any additional work. In the development environment, since the deno.jsonc file is located in the execution location, the import map information is set twice, and a warning is displayed indicating that this has been ignored. While separating the import map into a separate JSON file certainly has advantages, there are also issues, such as the separate import map not being properly recognized when executing commands like deno add. Thank you for watching.